Okay.
Hi, folks. We're going to give it just a minute more for everyone to filter in, and we should start shortly. Okay, I think it's enough time, and let's kick things off here today. Hi, I'm Kelly Smulligan-Moss. I'm Digital Marketing Manager with Gordon Food Service, and I'm really excited to present a great topic for you all today that's really relevant for the time right now. We're calling it Get Flexible, Menu and Pricing Strategies Built for Change. What doesn't need to change today and be flexible today in today's environment? Everything does, but it really starts with the foundation of your menu and your pricing strategies from an operations standpoint. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the value of doing a menu analysis and pricing strategies, the advantages of using limited time offers and features effectively, key menu trends and ideas, and then how to kind of navigate some of those supply chain gaps and strategies to overcome any gaps or challenges in the supply chain as an operator. And I'm really pleased that we have two fabulous, wonderful experts here from Gordon Food Service to walk you through this today. The first is Teresa Weller. She's a Gordon Food Service Customer Solutions Specialist based in Milton, Ontario. She's a trained chef and a food service veteran with a deep culinary and front of house experience spanning more than 3 decades. Teresa currently works with operators to increase their profitability and deliver an enhanced customer experience. And we also have Chef Nick Gonring. He's our Gordon Food Service Corporate Consulting Chef. He currently heads up our culinary R&D program for Gordon Food Service, and he conducts annual street level research in major metropolitan markets, including New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. He also works with Gordon Food Service and our customers to create kitchen tested recipes. And he also does plenty of training and seminars on innovative food service solutions for commercial and non-commercial operators alike. Additionally, Chef Nick is a contributing writer for Flavor and the Menu magazine. So, Teresa, I think I'll hand it off to you first to begin our webinar.
That's great. Thank you so much. Andrew, I'm just going to get you to flip to the next slide.
Actually, Nick, you can share your deck if you'd like.
It says I can't share while you're sharing.
There we go. Stop share.
There we go. Technical difficulties in the post-COVID.
Right off the bat here, right? Okay.
Phenomena. Sign of the times.
There we go. So we'll flip through that and get right into Teresa. There we go.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Nick. All right, so today we're going to be presenting a number of strategies for you around menus today and what they're going to look like going forward. But menu analysis should always be your first step towards launching a new menu. And there are a number of benefits to doing so. Performing a menu analysis is the practice of analyzing every item on your menu to determine their profitability and their popularity. From there, you can re-engineer your menu, making modifications to increase revenue and your overall success. So first and foremost, plate cost. Some of you will know this as theoretical item cost. It's one of the most important metrics that you'll need to do a menu analysis. Yes, costing out each and every item or ingredient on your menu is a very painstaking exercise, but it's very important to do it regularly. Using standard recipes can go a long way in ensuring proper portioning and consistency from the back of the house. Actual food cost percentage compares the cost versus sales of food you served during a specific period of time. And your contribution to margin is truly the cornerstone of menu engineering because it shows you in dollars how much profit each menu item brings you. It should always be calculated over a specific period of time. And just keep in mind that don't get too mired up in the percentages because it's dollars that you actually take to the bank. It's not percentages. So having a firm understanding of both your food cost percentage and the contribution to margin, examined both together, can help you make important decisions and guide your menu changes to make you more successful. Running a proper menu analysis will classify each menu item into 4 categories, and I'm sure many of you have seen these before: stars, puzzles, plow horses, and dogs. But just as a quick reminder, stars are your high profit and high popularity items. So you want to make sure that you're highlighting your stars. Be careful with making any changes to them and promote them wherever possible. Puzzles, on the other hand, are high profit items as well, but they're low in popularity. So you may take on a strategy to improve their item description on the menu. You may want to change the recipe and the presentation of that dish, or offer it as some form of feature. Staff training to promote all high contribution to margin items can go a really long way in moving these from puzzles into stars. And plow horses. In my market, the #1 plow horse on most menus is chicken wings. So these are items that everybody has. They're a commodity-driven item, low profit, but very, very popular with your guests. So you want to investigate possibly a less expensive ingredient, maybe consider reducing portion sizing, or maybe feature it in a combo or a meal deal, or some sort of a strategic pairing to increase the contribution to margin on that item. And lastly, dogs. These are low profit and low popularity. So your strategy around these should be rebranding, reinventing, removing them from your core menu, or just getting rid of them altogether. And lastly, we recommend performing the menu analysis twice a year. But with these uncertain times right now, you're going to want to be doing a full menu analysis on a more regular basis. You need to know that your menu is really performing. Chef Nick, is there anything that you want to add to this before we move to the next slide?
These are all super important things, especially right now. And if your dining rooms aren't currently open and you're waiting for that moment from legislators or regulators, now's the time to really understand what your costs are so you can be ready when you do get that opportunity to do so.
Right. Okay. So simplification is the order of the day right now. Paring down and streamlining your menu, allowing you to be more productive and efficient while reducing labor and waste. Simplifying your menu will give you the chance to reevaluate your brand and get back to the basics that define your overall business. Focus on what you're really good at. So from your menu analysis, you now know exactly what items you're making money on and what your customers like. So consider these, the execution of these dishes and the cross-functionality of ingredients that you have in your kitchen. These are the items that your staff should be recommending. Research has been telling us that the average person remembers only about 7 pieces of information at any given time. So when looking at a restaurant's menu, guests often have too many choices to process. This is called the paradox of choice, or my boss refers to it as analysis paralysis. We think that more choices will make it easy for us to make a better decision, but the reality is that we end up not being able to make a decision. We get bogged down, and generally we gravitate to price or some other factor to help us make a choice. So believe it or not, offering fewer choices will actually increase your sales. A good strategy is to break your menu into smaller sections with only a few options in each. Diners will perceive this as a wider choice of variety. And don't forget about your digital menu. Restaurants and bars are reopening across states and provinces slowly, but with this reopening are going to come some new challenges with the demand for contactless service. So we need to be carefully considering options for touchless menus. So currently we're seeing a lot of innovation around using QR codes and other forms of digital menus on the rise. So make sure that the menu that you have posted on your website is easily searchable and easy to read from a phone, because this is how customers that may be coming into your patio or deciding whether or not they're going to place an order, this is how they're going to access that valuable information about you. And off-site dining is here to stay. I think we could all be in agreement with that. So keep this in mind when you're restructuring your menu. If you're counting on takeout and delivery to be a mainstay of your business going forward, you want to make sure that you have either a separate portable foods menu for takeout or off-site dining, or consider the items that you have on your core menu to make sure that they are going to travel well. And I know Chef Nick has some further points on this in his part of the presentation. Nick, anything else that you wanted to add?
Not so much. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. The portability aspect, to your point, is something that's going to be here for the foreseen future. And I think the telling part is how operators are going to have either a couple different menus to service those guests, or how they're going to cross-utilize in a great way to not show repetition. So not having redundancy in verbiage in that menu design to really showcase that, we're being smart about how we're writing these things, but we're not showing the same items over and over again on these multiple menus. So still having that intrigue and that, design factor come into play, so consumers still want to eat there and get excited about their food.
Right. Okay. So pricing strategies. We know that it's not really all about what the menu items actually sell for on your menu, but it's how they're being presented to the guest and the connotations that are being made subconsciously. The value proposition is the tipping point between price and perceived value. You always want your customer to feel that they've received fair or higher value to what they've actually paid. In today's climate, with so many people being out of work over the past few months, household budgets are tight, and consumers have become adept at searching for deals. But a good deal to your customer doesn't have to come at the expense of your own bottom line. So don't be tempted to diminish your brand status by chasing a competitor's lower quality brand and price point. Keep your items unique enough that they can't be directly compared to your competition. In understanding the psychological barriers that guide consumer purchasing behaviors, there are some general guidelines that may help when you start setting pricing for your menu. So items priced less than $8 is recommended to use 20-cent increments in between to allow you the option to slowly inch those prices up as you need to, with minimal consumer backlash. Items that are priced between $8 to $15, it's recommended to use a 50-cent increment range. And for items over $15, it's best to use whole numbers. When considering your range between your low price and your high price items in a menu section, it's really a good idea to ensure that you offer consistent intervals between prices. So in this particular example, we used a $3 range, or a $3 increment, from $16, $19, $22, and $25. Customers or consumers in general feel more comfortable with this type of pricing strategy. It's something that they receive as being more logical. And you can test the elasticity of your menu prices by increasing in small increments until you notice, comments from customers, comments maybe on social media that will indicate some price resistance. So add-ons and bundling, this is a really, really great way to improve your profit margin on items, particularly in this environment where we're going to be having to be careful, maybe putting out some value meals, some value combos. And when we talk about add-ons, back in the day when I started in the industry, in the front of the house, suggestive selling was, all the mantra, and suggestive selling is really nothing new to the industry. You want to increase check averages, but in today's tech-savvy world, you're going to have to be more innovative on presenting opportunities that can easily increase profitability. So even if you have a customer that comes in the door because you're featuring a 2-for-1 offer, you can turn that low profit transaction into a high profit one by selling them something more, by adding on or bundling it with something else. So maybe the opportunity to suggest, hey, you know what, we have a wonderful house roasted coffee bean that we do here. Can I add on a pound of coffee to your order for you to enjoy tomorrow morning? Or can I recommend our homemade double fudge brownies for your family to enjoy after the meal that you've ordered? And if your market allows, the best way is honestly to suggest a bottle or two of wine, or maybe a 6-pack of a local craft beer to bundle up with the meal that they've ordered from you. And menu descriptions. So build more flexibility into your menu by eliminating wording that specifies grades and weights or even piece counts in your descriptions. And I know that Nick's going to talk about this a little bit more in his presentation, but just as an example, perhaps you don't need to use wording like our steak sandwich features an 8-ounce certified Angus beef strip loin, unless that is part of the specification and it's key to your brand and your market. So being a little more vague, that strategy will allow you some ability to rework your standard recipe if market volatility drives up price of your raw ingredients. So Chef Nick has some great examples of this coming up that I think you're really gonna like. Chef, is there anything else that you wanted to add at this point?
No, I think that's great. I think the volatility piece, obviously is something I'm going to touch on more with the protein side of supply chain and how that relates to kind of what we're tasked with today. But I mean, I like the obvious inclusion that you talked about with, does it have to say certified Angus beef, being strip steak, or can you just say strip steak depending on where you're getting it from today, because it might not be available in the near future, right? So just trying to, plan for that as you print your menus and you design your menus, and being cognizant of those things that are going on around you.
Exactly. Okay. So your limited offers and features. This is another really, really important strategy. And we're going to see some other examples of this as we go through. Sorry, I'm just going to flip down here. When we talk about doing your menu analysis, really, really important that the whole idea behind this is to be able to get to the point where you've pared down your core menu, that it functions extremely well for you. But in addition to your core menu, utilizing limited time offers or LTOs in conjunction with that core menu can allow you to pivot quickly to take advantage of commodity market buys that you may get from your supplier, or to add trending or unique flavors to keep your regular customers interested, or to attract new clientele through exciting promotions. So for these menu items to drive traffic and be successful for you, though, guests need to first learn that they're available from you. So whether you're using traditional TV advertising, word of mouth, more and more today, it's direct email contact as you build your email list through your marketing strategies or your total social media platform. A strong marketing campaign must accompany an effective LTO. So I always like to talk about Olive Garden because they've done such a great job with their buy one, take one promo. And they've actually recently pivoted to transition this to work very well for curbside pickup while their dining rooms were closed. And as seasons change, LTOs give you the option of riding a seasonal flavor wave that consumers look for. So a great example, autumn ushers in the arrival of pumpkin spice everything. So whether you like pumpkin spice or not, this LTO from Starbucks has been so successful since its launch in 2003 that you can now find pumpkin spice products just about anywhere, like McDonald's, 7-Eleven, Tim Hortons, Krispy Kreme, Dunkin' Donuts. It's everywhere. And the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte now even has its own Twitter account with almost 99,000 followers. I meant to ask you, Chef Nick, if you were signed up as a follower of the pumpkin spice latte.
I am not.
You're not.
So
You will
sad to
be
say.
after today. And then features or specials. These are simply shorter term commitments. They offer you the greatest outlet for flexibility with the least amount of risk. They can be added really quickly to an online menu, promoted on social media, explained tableside, or at the point of order by using a simple chalkboard or signage. So offering unique flavor combinations that you can't get anywhere else can be a big draw for diners who are craving to discover something new. So I put a couple of examples here that I recently saw on social media, and I'm pretty intrigued by trying out a chipotle cinnamon dusted cauliflower bite. That sounds really interesting to me, and I would certainly order that if I saw it. Or the opportunity to take traditional Canadian poutine, call out Canada, thank you, and giving it a little bit of a chorizo infusion, I think sounds really interesting as well. So not every one of your customers is going to be looking for a value meal deal, but this type of LTO or feature strategy can work very well to encourage trial and to attract new customers to you. All right, Chef Nick, anything to add on that before I turn it over to you?
I don't think so. I think we're just going to get right into it. So,
Excellent.
okay, menus are morphing. One thing that we all know here is change has been a constant, right? And the stats here on the left are from our friends at Data Essentials that show what operators regarded as the most important adjustments to make as they relate to menus today. So top of the stack, shrinking your menu. This provides some relief to both back of the house labor and lowers purchases and inventory on hand, and it brings a heightened awareness to cross-utilize ingredients when possible. Additionally important were the strategies to impact your sales mix. This includes family meals, kits, take and bake options that are readily available for curbside pickup or delivery, or maybe you found ways to cross-merchandise what you create to sell or their raw ingredients like produce to offer retail extensions in your footprint. If you found ways to successfully adapt your operation to grab new sales when you had no dining option to offer, don't abandon those wins, but fold them into your strategy as dining rooms and patios open at whatever capacities are allowed today. So let's look at a menu example from our latest Chicago research. This is from restaurant The Bandit, Dynamic Hospitality Group. And what you're seeing here is the menu we tasted in pre-pandemic times. So in total, there are 24 menu items on this as an example, and it's really well organized. And to Teresa's point, they have really nice categories here. It's really easy with good flow, not a whole ton of opportunities or options to pick from where you get, you know, kind of burdened down with trying to select with what you want. And, you know, this is a good menu, but what does this look like now as we fast forward to present times? What does recovery look like? So some backstory here. The Bandit is located in Chicago's restaurant row on Randolph Street, where just a few days ago, they were allowed to open their patios for dining. So immediately when you look at their website, this pops up. And this instills consumer confidence and directs where and what menus are available. With consumer confidence being so low right now, this immediately calls out what they're doing to keep the health and safety of their guests the number one priority, which I think is super important. Now, their patio menu and portable food menus are almost identical with just a few differences to call out. And first, we have to acknowledge that they shrunk their menu by almost 50% here. So they went from 24 items down to 11. But they kept it aligned with their brands and the menu items that they are known for. Additionally, their to-go menu through Caviar offers a pandemic picnic basket, which I appreciate for the cross-merchandising with what they already have in the back of the house and in the front of the house with wine. And furthermore, their to-go menu has restricted a lot of the customizable opportunities it would normally offer for in-house dining, which I think is super important for the hiatus of the kitchen crew in the back of the house. And this is a great example of control with what you can control, right? So almost like rolling out a soft opening menu until you get some repetition from service, until you get your legs underneath you. Now, there's a few menu callouts here that remained on their menus today from pre-COVID times. And they are known for their disco fries, which is sort of an homage to poutine with global influence here. So again, shout out to Canada. This is something that is, you're welcome, that is unique, that consumers can't just get anywhere and certainly will have difficulty trying to make this at home. But there's a few things to note here. So the first is they didn't discount their price from then to now. So don't slash or discount your prices, especially if you're known for those items, because it becomes a race to the bottom. Instead, they raised the price on their new menu from $14 to $16, which I think is awesome. And the second thing is, and this is a better option to have, let me go back, is that this is a better option for a French fry, right? This is a portable solution since waffle fries or crisp cut fries will better hold their texture. And that is exactly what they're using here as their service vehicle for their disco fries. Now onto this next example. This is their chicken shawarma salad, which is another menu item that remained on, and for good reason. It's on trend with global or Mediterranean flavor that drives craveability, and salad options hit that healthy halo that dining consumers are looking for, especially after 3 months of binge watching Netflix and eating some high calorie foods, let's be honest here. It's extremely portable for to-goes, as we all know, but it's also a cold dish, and that's extremely important to note because cold dishes, when you have a good balance of cold to hot menu offerings, it's going to really streamline kitchen production, alleviate labor pressures, and decrease ticket times. So you can get ahead on cold items where most hot dishes are a la minute or made to order, and that's really important to know. Now, this slide, this is their Diplomat Burger, which is another menu staple and is appropriate call out here. So one thing we know from experience from the great financial recession of 08-09 is that there was a large increase in consumer demands for things like sandwiches or handhelds and global flavors and comfort foods, right? All things that kind of make sense right now. And this is a unique option that fits that bill in its entirety. Their take here is their house pull-apart Parker House roll. They cut the top off of it clean in one piece, and then they add in between their small griddled burger patties, and they fill it with caramelized onions, some bacon jam, Merck's cheddar spread, and this is just a great example of comfort food. So this slide is reaffirming what we just talked about in some ways. These are statistics from 08-09, and this graph is really showing the peaks and valleys in menu categories as a result of consumer demand from the great financial recession of 09. And you can see here the peaks and valleys. So the peaks being in green, The sandwiches saw a huge increase on your left-hand side, and then moving over to the right, as did combo or value meals, and Teresa talked about that at length. And then global flavors like Mexican cuisine saw an uptick, and of course, always pizza. When in doubt, pizza will always win in some way, shape, or form. So that's always a safe bet. But now, so what happens when the supply chain breaks down like we've experienced, or we're still experiencing in somewhat today? So even though protein supply production is getting better, labor behind the output is tight, especially with boneless meat. So all that labor that goes into, boning out a pork loin or, trying to do those sort of things, there's so much labor invested into it that it's really not streamlining the efficiencies in the production plant. So that's not the number one priority. The number one priority is to get as many pounds out the door as fast as possible. But keep that in mind when you're designing your menus, because not only is a bone-in option like pork chops going to be a safe bet right now, but it's also a better portable option too, because it retains its moisture so much better. So as it gets to your customer or the end user at their house, or if they're picking it up, that's a carry-out option, it's going to retain that moisture better and have a better to-go customer experience. And this all goes back to kind of that kitchen chameleon experience, trying to embrace that change or embracing that strategy as we roll with the punches of today. But what's a good solution or a good answer to this? And I think that vegetable centricity is a very, very good option to fit your menu when protein supplies have become kind of broken in that sense. So what is vegetable centricity if you're not really sure what that is? Well, vegetable centricity is something we've been talking about from a culinary R&D perspective at Gordon Food Service for now half a decade. And it's really just talking about putting the vegetable to the center of the plate and making that the star of the show. It doesn't have to be just vegetables, however. We're simply saying you can add protein elements to it in small, purposeful, and intentional small quantities, really to uplift the flavor profiles of these vegetables and give them a whole much more depth of flavor. So what you're seeing here are some protein inclusions or adds that really are going to drive that craveability and give you a whole bunch more flavor profile that vegetables would not have as a standalone by themselves. So this is what we're saying is vegetable centricity. It doesn't have to be just vegetables on the plate. So let's look at some examples of what that might be from our latest research this year. So this is from yours truly in California and Los Angeles. This is their cauliflower popcorn. I thought this dish was great. So obviously the highlight here is being that cauliflower portion and the florets that they have. And this is a quick shout out to Mark On Ready Set Serve items from us as one of our brands, our co-op. And you can buy, hundreds of value added Ready Set Serve items through Mark On, through Gordon Food Service. They're going to be pre-cut and pre-washed. It's going to give you the utmost confidence in the back of the house to make sure you're putting out consistent and clean and ready food. That's really going to give you, the best bang for your buck, and also help drive that consumer confidence because you're using these ingredients that are already pre-washed, and it's going to limit foodborne illness and cross-contamination possibilities. So shout out to Mark On. But also, so here we got the tempura cauliflower. The yuzu koshu is a side condiment that is yuzu citrus and fermented chili paste. But the flavor profile that's coming in from the protein inclusion here is the beignet cotta, and this is your anchovy emulsion with olive oil and garlic, and this is really just tossed over this cauliflower popcorn. And then to really top it off and to drive some more craveability and some more umami or depth of flavor is some grated Parmesan Reggiano cheese. And that really kind of makes it this fluffy popcorn-esque looking dish. And I really love the appearance of it. And this was delicious. This next dish is from Margot in Los Angeles. This is their dish of market lettuces. Pretty simple, right? So here they just have some greens, their herb dressing, sunflower seeds, some Granny Smith apples, both for like that bite and texture and kind of that sour note. But then for their kind of crouton-esque thing, if you will, they have some Serrano ham cracklings. And there's some things to talk about here. So Serrano ham is a dried cured ham. You can't get away with this by shaving some deli ham that you get from the grocery store and putting that on top. One, for the texture piece, but for two, the depth of flavor is just not the same. We're talking apples to oranges here. So Serrano ham being dried cured, what that does is really fortify all the concentration and flavor in that shaving of ham, opposed to wet cured ham is adding moisture, right? So it's kind of it's taking away from that flavor in some aspects, but this is fortifying it. So they're taking those small shavings, small inclusions of this, very minuscule cost, very minuscule portion, and they're dropping it in the deep fryer to crisp it up, and then they're putting it on top of this salad. So you're getting that flavor and you're getting the crunch for texture. And to me, that's a win-win. Now on to Pomp and Circumstances in Brooklyn. This is their French onion dip, and everybody knows French onion dip. It's nostalgic, it's comfort food. These are the sort of things we're talking about today that are going to win and drive success. But here they're doing it differently, right? So caramelized onions at the base and its core of what this dip is. But really what they're doing to make it different and drive that craveability aspect is adding boutarga on top. And if you're not familiar with what boutarga is, it's that dry cured mullet roe sack that you grate on top with the microplane that adds tons and tons of flavor. And again, this is such a small quantity of it's maybe, a half a teaspoon at most, right? So a couple grams maybe. And here, this just uplifts the whole entire dip because as it comes to the dining guest, if it's on the patio or it's to go, right? All you need to do is stir that up and you get little bits of more allium flavor from those chives. And it's a great thing to be able to dip with vegetables or chips, etc. So this is just a wonderful idea of a vegetable-centric orientated dish here. And then this is from Chef Missy Robbins in Brooklyn at Restaurant Missy. This is her marinated leek dish. So here you've got abundance of marinated beautiful leeks, some parsley for that herbaceous punch. They have pistachios for texture, and really the flavor is coming from the marination of the anchovy and extra virgin olive oil. So that punch of anchovy is really giving it that umami, that deep dose of that sodium kick that's really going to help the marination process of those leeks, but still give it so much more flavor that the leeks would not have if they were just by themselves, right? And that's the whole idea of just little bits inclusions of these protein elements that are, for one, not going to break the bank. For two, most of which are pantry items, like this would be being anchovies. And for three, I mean, the flavor profile here is going to be drastically different than keeping it by itself, just the leeks, pistachios, and herbs. And the last example here is from Racine's in New York City. This is their dish of roasted Brussels sprouts. I love this dish. For one, texturally, they're adding this sunchoke granola that is just amazing. But the condiment here, again, another kind of pantry item, is XO sauce. And if you're not familiar with that, that is a Chinese staple that's built on basically small bits of dried cured hams again, and then little pieces of freeze-dried shrimp and freeze-dried scallops, really small pieces of that are in this kind of fermented chili paste. And so as you toss these ingredients in there, when they come out of the oven and you add that granola texture on top, it really gives this whole explosion of flavor in just a small dosage or just a small quantity that goes a really, really long way. So this is my last example of really what vegetable centricity is. And I think, it's a highlight because, Gen Z, millennials, the adventuresome diners that are out there that are really trying to look for these foods that fits that bill. But also, if you're looking to try to find, meat replacements on your menu where you see gaps from supply chains, adding vegetables in this format is really, really going to serve you well because it's not going to break the bank. It's going to drive so much excitement to your menu descriptions and still including those proteins on there. And this is exactly what diners are looking for too, with those vegetables being that healthy halo as it comes summertime, springtime, right? They're looking for, not high dense calorie foods, but still driving that comfortability at the same time. So, on behalf of Teresa and myself, I want to thank you guys all so much for your time and hope you gleaned a few takeaways to take back to your menus and your operations. And I think we have plenty of time for Q&A. So if there are any questions, certainly we'd like to address those.
Yes, thank you, Nick and Teresa. Great presentations. For the audience there, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A box. While you're waiting, I have a question. I love the desert island question, right? So if you're an operator today and you have to do one thing, one piece of advice, one simple thing you could do to tweak, what would your recommendations be? Teresa, why don't you go first?
Absolutely. Mine would be to don't do anything without doing a menu analysis. You need to know what your costs are, and without that, you're flying blind.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would agree to that. Not knowing your costs, especially right now when, the restaurant industry, as far as, restaurants are concerned, it's usually pennies on the dollar, right? So if you're not knowing your costs today, I mean, that's not going to help you serve for the future for sure. But I would say for me is the differentiation piece, because I think a lot of, what I've seen from the portability aspect, when there hasn't been an opportunity for, dining rooms to be open, or in this case now maybe some patios are opening, right? Is everybody's kind of in the same boat. So if you're not driving that differentiation piece, or keeping at least what you're known for on your menu and capitalizing on that, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're not really driving that ship to really get people to gravitate towards your menu, and drive maybe perhaps your social media to engage in that, and get people and get now butts and seats in, patios and so forth. And I think, it's really looking at those things like vegetable centric cuisine, and options that are really going to help you tell a different story compared to other people on the same street.
Right. And then people don't shop you by price. You're not
Yeah, that's
chasing,
exactly right.
as you say, the race to the bottom, because, you've got to have a less expensive or a cheaper burger deal than the guy down the street, or a less expensive pound of wings. Yeah, you're right on there. Just
Yeah, we don't
differentiate
want
yourself.
shoppers, we want buyers. And the way you don't get shoppers is you don't have the same thing to offer, right? Everybody has the same thing. People are going to be shopping on price. You just want
Yeah.
people to buy because they want to eat it.
Yeah, exactly. Your craveability factor. You talked lots about umami, and I love that you had a ton of examples of components from the ocean, from the sea. I'm reading lots and lots about different aquatic ingredients more than ever. Kelp and kombu. You alluded to dashi and a few others, and seeing a lot of that kind of being added to the veg-centric discussion as well.
Great, thank you. We actually have a question from the audience that just came in. The question is, are the price point guidelines, Teresa, that you gave always the suggestion, or are they the new pricing guidelines for the COVID-19 modified menu? Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Absolutely. So those pricing guidelines have been around for quite a while, and it really goes back to the psychology of menus, the psychology of consumer behavior as they look to pricing. And there's a few other extensions on that, with the use of whether do we use dollar signs or we don't use dollar signs. But that's not new, but it's very, very important, because consumers, when they're purchasing something, below $8, are very, very price sensitive. So if you took, a cup of coffee and you raise that cup of coffee from $3 to $4, you're going to be in trouble. Customers are going to know, and you're going to have a big backlash with consumers. Anything over $8, you can kind of, so anything, just to repeat, under $8, you want to make those price increase increments smaller. So we suggested 20-cent increments, and then 8 to 15 would be a 50-cent increments. And then once you get into about $15, you can implement price increases rounding up to a whole number. And that again is just general rule of thumb, but it kind of goes back to that psychology of consumer behavior and how people respond to prices when they see them published. I hope that helps.
I think so.
Okay.
I'll do a follow-up, and maybe both of you can answer this question. You mentioned beverages, Teresa, like $3 to $4. Are there certain items, but then Nick also mentioned the disco fries, right? And they raised their price from 14 to 16. Are there certain items that have more price wiggle room or elasticity, whereas others don't, as kind of a general rule of guidance for our operators who are looking to reclaim some of the profits and margins that they've lost as the result of reduced business? Is there anything guidance-wise you can offer there, either Nick or Teresa or both of you?
I'll just jump in right in and say the uniqueness factor, right? If you're the only one selling it, there's no comparable cost. So getting creative in the space of whatever you can be and driving something that's completely unique or is hard pressed to find elsewhere, you're going to get away with, you know, however much you're charging, and just because there's no baseline, there's no example to take and say, well, they're charging this much over there, right? So I think whether it's beverage or whatever it is, I mean, the world is your oyster in the flavor department. So trying to make it so different that I think that there's nothing that you can compare it to, like I had said. So if you're talking about beverages, I mean, if there's just a standard, you know, whether it's alcohol or not, you know, again, that's going to go back to the shopping opposed to buying kind of analogy that we talked about just previously.
And a lot of that has to do with how you position the product. So you want to call out the fact that, you know, you grind your own coffee beans, that you're not serving your coffee in a 8-ounce styrofoam cup, right? It's part about the guest experience and being able to call those things out on your menu. If there's a special component that, if it's, you know, a non-alcoholic cocktail, for instance, on your menu, you want to really spend time talking about, you know, are you using natural ingredients? What are the call outs that are going to pull people into that, you know, fresh, exotic? It's all about building the experience to them versus just, you know, marketing a, you know, a glass of soda or, you know, another side of coleslaw, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly, when we're talking about beverage, there's certainly a lot of flavors that we saw on research and repetition this last past year that kind of were brought to the fore of what's new and what's exciting in that space. So things like hibiscus, you know, from like a flower petal perspective, that will turn, you know, whatever you're drinking, a pretty nice red color. So kind of that visual appeal. And then, you know, things like different citruses, like we talked about yuzu. I said it in yuzu koshu, which is more of obviously a condiment, but yuzu as just the citrus has such a different flavor. It's kind of akin to almost like a Meyer lemon. It has more of like a floral flavor to it. We saw that a lot out on research. And then calamansi citrus, which is, you know, more of a global citrus, but again, has a different flavor profile to it. So trying to gravitate towards more of those kind of like culinary ingredients in a lot of ways for mixologists to be able to tap into. And plus, if you're already bringing your own house, it's a good way to cross-utilize what you're using in the back of the house for the front of the house, offering different cocktails that you can use kind of more chef-orientated ingredients with. That's really going to drive, you know, multifaceted sales between food and beverage.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I don't think we have any more questions today from our audience. I'd like to thank you again, Nick and Teresa, for your time today and your expertise in sharing that with our audience. We will have a live recording of this, live webinar available on eat.news and on gfs.com and gfs.ca later today. So look for it if you missed pieces of it or would like to rewatch certain sections. Thank you everyone for your time and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.